Hi, welcome to another Tips for Landlords and Property Managers video sponsored by fastevict.com Law Group. On today's video, we'll go over some tips on what to do when a tenant violates the lease. Keep in mind, the contents of this video shouldn't be considered legal advice. Please contact us for further information. There are a lot of ins and outs in the rental property business. One of those is landlord-tenant relationships. It's important to have one to begin with, but keeping it on the right side will dictate how smooth your business will run. So what can we do as landlords when a tenant violates the lease? What is a lease violation? A lease violation is a breach of contract by the tenant. It is when they fail to follow what is outlined on the rental agreement. What are the most common lease violations? Parking spot violations usually happens when a guest parks in someone's designated parking spot or a tenant just flat out forgets where to park. Noise violations. You'll get the tenant who just lost track of time listening to classic rock jams, or the tenant who is a chronic offender and has parties every weekend. Non-payment of rent. Not much needed to explain here. A tenant fails to pay rent. You'll see the good tenant who legit forgot to pay his or her rent, all the way through the tenant who offers every excuse in the book as to why they couldn't pay you rent on time. Long-term guests. When tenants don't respect guest policies written on the lease, it can become a liability issue for the landlord. It's important to make sure your tenants are aware of this. Pet policy violations. Most of these situations are caused by confusion on what constitutes as a pet, or a small lap dog versus a dog not allowed in the rental property. Unauthorized property modifications. Changing locks without a landlord's permission, painting a living room wall, setting up security cameras, removing doors or window screens. These are all issues that can arise when it comes to unauthorized modifications. Property damage. When a tenant purposefully causes damage to the rental property. Illegal use of rental property. The tenants can oftentimes forget that they can't use the property for commercial purposes. A more serious situation would be if you can catch a tenant using your property for illegal activity. It's important to consider how the lease violation affects you, your tenant, your property, and other tenants to determine how to deal or handle the lease violation. A parking violation might be handled via a phone call. Illegal activity should be handled by calling the police and initiating the eviction process immediately. After you've found that a tenant has violated your lease, the first step should be to call your tenant and make sure they are aware of their breach of contract. Many times, it is a simple misunderstanding. If this fixes the situation, great. If the violation persists, a notice should be served. A 3-day notice to cure or quit should be served to your tenant for non-monetary reasons in lease violations. This acts as an official warning to your tenant, and it also legally begins the eviction process in case the situation warrants it. It's a good idea to always keep track of violation occurrences. Keeping track of witnesses, dates, times, and photographs always help in case you have to take your tenant to court. How do you handle lease violations? Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel if you have found this info useful. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.